Sorry, what's your name again?
Max Chapman.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Max. Yeah.
Sorry, Max. I just wanted to mention something, because you mentioned bias and about technology, and I completely agree with you on that. But also, I've learned this recently, especially obviously I've lived and been all around the world, and when I've been learning new things, and especially off social media nowadays can be very informative, I've learned that no matter what source you read, there's always going to be an element of bias.
Yeah.
And that's reality.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
In some sense. So obviously you work with Bloomberg. Bloomberg will have a bias to whoever you're trying to reference to, whatever that be, a conservative, liberal, or even anything you can link it to. But yeah, the problem is with everything is that it will always be biased. Even though it can be, you get to equilibrium or to the
Hold on, sir. Are you biased? Are humans biased?
I'd like to be biased.
I think.
So why should we expect technology not to be biased?
Say that again.
I can't shout any louder than that.
I think that it's not that people aren't, it's not that things aren't biased. Everything is always biased. Just it's kind of very difficult to have an objective view of things in general. For now.
Yes.
The thing is, I think technology does help obscure biases. A lot of the things, for example, technologies that are researched in a lab are considered, or at least viewed by a lot of people as these kind of unbiased, neutral programs, when in reality, there's biases within the way that they're developed. I always call back onto the facial scanning technologies and how, the labs were mostly white or not people of other skin colors, and so as a result, when they did their tests, everything was fine, but no one actually thought about testing it on a black person or an Indian or Chinese person, right? So I think technology obscures a lot of its biases. It's important to try to highlight and recognize.
What do you mean? Humans don't obscure their biases?
It's harder. I think technology has this association with being neutral, which I think, like you said, right? When it's really never the case.
Well, I think we just have a very, as humans, we have a really clear way of thinking about, okay, where does this person coming from? We know intuitively that everybody has a point of view, and the thing about a machine is it's you can sort of fool yourself into thinking it doesn't have a point of view, but of course it's just it's a product.
Okay. I like that way of expressing it.
That is what I was going to say about technology.
Okay, what's next, Tina?
Welcome, Doctor.
Hi there, Robert.
Please meet Max.
Hello. How are you?
Who are you and what do you do in life, Robert?
My name is Bob Stern, and I am a professor of geoscience at the University of Texas at Dallas. And I'm handicapped, so I'm remote. This technology has allowed us to do things that would not have been possible a few years ago. Like me participating, I would have been forced to retire. So I'm very interested in Senexes.
Well,
I like to think I am.
We're going to come to that soon after Max has finished pontificating.
Yeah.
Mr. Stern loves the noosphere.
What's the noosphere?
Oh, never mind. Don't.
He's a journalist and he's ignorant. He doesn't know what the noosphere is. Noosphere.
Max, I couldn't tell you, but he could.
Okay.
What is the noosphere, Robert?
Oh, the noosphere is, first you have to understand Vernadsky's ideas about the different spheres of Earth. So it starts off with what he calls the lithosphere, which is the rock of the planet, and then there's the hydrosphere, the water, and then there's the atmosphere, of course, and then there's the cryosphere, which is ice. And then there's the biosphere, which lives on it. We're part of the biosphere. And a fellow, Vernadsky died in 1943. A fellow by the name of Pierre Desjardins, Thierry Desjardins, a French priest, actually, built on Vernadsky's idea and to talk about the noosphere, the linking of intelligences of humans as a new sphere that is being built. So this was an idea that he developed in the 1920s, when the only real communication between intelligences were newspapers and radio was just becoming a thing. Now we have the internet, and the noosphere is actually happening. Now we're seeing a lot of growing pains because it turns out that each of us has different ideas about things, but we're communicating them. We talk about misinformation and the global village and things like that. These are all growing pains of the noosphere. So the noosphere is one of the most exciting things that's happening right now in terms of my understanding of the emerging world of human beings.
That's awesome.
You mean AI is talking about us behind our back?
No, AI doesn't talk to anybody except us, so it would never be behind our back.
Not yet.
What they're thinking, that's a different thing.
Doesn't AI communicate with other AIs?
I couldn't tell you that. I know nothing about AI except it's incredibly useful and fun to play with. And slightly intimidating.
Okay, thank you very much.
For this introduction, then we'll come back to the topic with our journalists and also business, politics, cross area.
Society, technology, society, and culture.
But I only have a short period of time. Let's make good use of time. Because our topics are focusing on emergence. So what's your insights, what you can share with the class about emerging communication and media?
What are things that are emerging that you've noticed?
I mean, I think that the most interesting thing is it has to do with the way people are using these large language models and the AI stuff. I mean, it's obviously there's like a huge amount of money there. So like any place where there's a lot of money, there are a lot of people chasing that money. So you get ideas and like I said earlier, it's like I think the idea of lawyers not reading the brief or whatever, like I think that's a thing that's happening that's almost universal. And there are lots of ways people are not reading their emails or whatever. They're not reading news articles. They're reading ChatGPT summaries, and that has economic implications, but it also has cultural implications. I mean, I love your example of the M dash as like a writing, the idea that it's going to change the way we present. And I feel like there are all sorts of interesting ways in which, like, I wonder as a writer, are you going to have to like seem more human and more flawed? Like, one of the emerging trends in media is, this is like not a revelation to anybody, I hope, but like there are a lot of popular podcasters now. Joe Rogan is a very big deal. There are all these, and like, how are those podcasters different from traditional media? One thing that is different about them is that they are sort of more human. They like make mistakes. It's less polished. Like if you compare like some of these mega podcasters who helped Donald Trump get elected president, helped sell books and so on, their thing is being like less polished, more real, quote unquote. And I don't know. I mean,
whereas professional journalists are very polished.
And like there's a lot of interesting research in my world about how media outlets handle mistakes. So like, traditionally, like we have a correction. Bloomberg is a digital publisher, but Business Week, the magazine I work for, has like a little corrections box, right? It's very small. Like traditionally, you don't really want to show people your corrections. You like bury them like at the end of the article, or on a teeny page, if you're like, and that's if you're like a really respectable publisher. A lot of publishers just like pretend it isn't even there. And a lot of these creators, these like podcasters, TikTokers, and so on, like they put their biases like right front and center. They put their mistakes front and center. They make their mistakes like part of what's interesting about what they're doing, and they use it or because they do that, audiences find them more credible in some cases, especially younger audiences, than like what we do. They don't trust the New York Times or Bloomberg or whatever, and like one reason they don't trust us is because
You don't make enough mistakes.
we're not upfront enough about our mistakes. We don't own our mistakes in the same way. Whereas like the like influencer thing, like part of what makes an influencer interesting is that they make mistakes and they
That's
own.
something related to authenticity.
Totally.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Undergraduate thesis and a lot of my current research on parasocial marketing, parasocial relationships. It's totally that dynamic of like there's this growing lack of credibility with disassociated voice, I guess is the proper way to say it.
It's a huge challenge for media institutions, probably a challenge for universities too, because like because in certain ways it's like the opposite of what we like. The way that a big institutional media brand creates value is it's like a voice of God, and like that is and so you can't, as a big institutional media brand, it's very hard to be like, oh, I'm going to be personable and own my mistakes. Like those are like, it's like almost two different
Okay,
things.
you just gave me hope. I keep forgetting the names of people who walk in this room.
Oh, Cooper, yeah.
No, but I mean, a famous journalist would never forget someone's name that they're interviewing, right? Well, I often forget. Cooper just walked in the room. Cooper, please introduce yourself. Who are you and why you here?
Hi, my name is Cooper. I'm a sophomore studying animation, and I'm y'all's editor.
Editor. He works for you. He's a journalist.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, very good. Okay, Tina, keep driving this forwards.
Yeah, I think we had a nice conversation. We're asking questions, but I think our students have a lot of to ask, like in journalism. How do they get into job? How do the emerging technology and emerging media affect their job searching? What's your advice to them?
Well, I think so. A couple of thoughts. Like one is that they're just like incredibly terrifying disruptions happening in media and journalism. So like it's been basically a shrinking business the entire time I've been in the field, and that's pretty depressing, honestly, because it makes like answering this kind of question like very hard, because it's like what's my career advice? It's like, don't get into journalism because like it's a bad field. But I don't totally believe that. But when you're in a business that is is going through such significant changes. I mean, on the other hand, like I don't know, because anytime there's like a lot of disruption like that, it creates opportunities, and it means that, I mean, there was this like blogging revolution in journalism that happened like right when I was starting out, like between
Vlogs, yeah.
but blogs with a B, but also vlogs.
Vlogs and blogs.
Yeah, and like that, and there's like a whole bunch of careers and new media brands, and like a whole bunch of really exciting things happened, and that kind of like went away because of social media, and social media effectively like reconsolidated the industry just in a way that was worse for.
So that's de-emergence, not emergence.
And it weirdly did the opposite. So the whole idea of that revolution was that it was going to like democratize media. In a weird way, it made these big institutions like the New York Times even more powerful than they were before. Like your local newspaper went out of business because some people could go get their news from the New York Times. but anyway, but there's like a new version of that happening now because of some of the things I'm talking about, because of TikTok, but like these creators and creator-driven brands, and also like work that businesses are doing. Like there are all these new forms of media, and that creates opportunities, I think, both like direct opportunities, like to get a job for like a media outlet or whatever, or a company that is trying to publish stuff, but also creates opportunities just to like navigate, like, I don't know, anytime there's disruption. So I don't know, that's not useful career advice. Sorry, what else can I share?
What is Bloomberg doing right now to stay relevant?
I mean, you know, just trying to cover the news and so on, and trusting that is, you know, that's worthwhile. I mean, the thing for us, so like we're like everybody else, we're thinking about some of these issues that I just mentioned, like how do you create, like, how do you allow writers and editors and reporters to have like a more direct connection?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and also like rethinking, you know, how, like what value is. Like Bloomberg historically, the way that we created value was like having news like 15 seconds ahead of Reuters or whatever. You know, the main customer base are people in the finance industry. And so like if you publish a news story 15 seconds ahead of the competition, that's like money in somebody's pocket that justifies our existence. That's still a big part of the business, but we also are building like this subscription business and trying to publish more features and trying to do, and that's the stuff that I actually work on, is having to do with like stuff that's outside, really, it's kind of outside of the world of finance. Although I'm interested in finance, I like writing, you know, whatever, but I don't know like hardcore.
Okay,
I know that
so
you,
I'm going to interrupt the proceedings. I have some bad news. We have a famous professor online. Her name is Patricia Olenek. Who are you and what do you do in life and what were you doing 20 minutes ago?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I was holding my last graduate seminar of the semester, so I apologize for jumping into this.
Where do you teach?
I'm at Washington University in St. Louis. My primary appointment is Florence and Frank Bush, now professor of art at Washington University in St. Louis, and I also teach across medical humanities, and also I'm a faculty fellow in several units that involve ecology, environment, and sustainability.
Okay, and what's on your mind at the moment?
What's on my mind at the moment? I've only been here for a few minutes, but it strikes me that several conversations with other people tracking business, economics, and journalism, but also digital technologies, is this question of cognitive dissonance. And whether or not we're living in an era of absolute cognitive dissonance with the news, with everything, that we're, you know, several years ago, truth value went out the window, the notion that we're all living our own lived truths, right? That there isn't one thing, it's the world of distributed knowledge, there isn't a single truth anymore. But what do you think the relationship is to journalism and to worldview, and whether or not the truth value is even in fact the point? This notion of cognitive dissonance is coming up a lot in conversations.
Can you define cognitive dissonance?
A kind of a disconnect from the reality of our sort of current economical, global, socio-political, socio-economic situation. That we are in fact driven by, you know, maybe constructed narratives that don't in any way mesh or align with probably a lot of what you are trying to bring to light by way of good, solid journalism. Do people even want it?
Okay, thank you, Patricia. Before we kick Max Shafkin out the door, he's now had an hour of our time. And what are you working on that's relevant to me? I have a conflict of interest, so I'm not allowed to mention it, but you can.
Okay, yeah. So I'm really interested in technology and technologists, and I'm working on a book project about the beginnings of the Jet Propulsion Lab. It's an amazing, I'm sure, hopefully Roger has shared some of this with you all, because
No.
his father was one of the founders, just an amazing figure in technology and art, and the beginnings of the Jet Propulsion Lab are super interesting to me just because it's this kind of new technology, these guys who were sort of incredibly different from everybody around them, and different in ways that are both familiar to us and also totally unfamiliar. There's also a lot of resonance. There's some like political resonance. The story touches on, the Red Scare. We're living through a new period where people on college campuses are.
You mean we have the.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to call it yet. And I actually, being here with you all, like, I'm reminded that how real that stuff is for people on universities, whatever. And also, meanwhile, you have this rocket scientist who's just going around I don't know.
Okay, enough.
Anyway.
Enough publicity.
All right, yeah. So
Roger.
I'm really interested in this story. I wanted to spend some time with Roger.
Okay, so we are going to get to the Senex, but first we'd like each student to tell us about the project they're working on and what they've done recently and what they're doing next. So who would like to begin? I know what Belinda's doing Friday, so tell us about your project, Belinda.
Okay, so basically the Women in Animation here at UT Dallas are organizing an event. They call it WIA, that is Women in Animation Palooza 2025.
Women, AI, and Animation.
Yes, so basically they want to give opportunities to labs to kind of market or tell people about what they have to kind of encourage them to join. That's basically the event. And you have to kind of showcase what you have, either AI, anything at all. So yes, that's what I'm doing this week.
And what are you showcasing?
Right now we're doing Spread the Heretic, because that's one of the most important things here in the lab. And then we're talking about Emergence. So there are some demos that have been created that we want to showcase to people, and then for them to try. Then some poems we kind of generated from this AI, and also some of these poems that the latest poem Frederick Tanner wrote. We tried to create a video to match the poem, so we can just project it so people can actually.
So the human is reciting the AI generated poem.
Yes, and then people can see all that. So basically, yeah.
And can you tell the difference?
We'll see.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. Okay, Flavia, what project are you working on most, and what did you do recently, and what are you doing next?
Oh my God. This week I work in a project to a grant in the artificial intelligence program here at the university, and I'm trying to
Explain that. What is the AI program in the university that's just starting something?
is IAI probably like the
Academy of AI or something.
yes. So it's a place to foment more research and studies about artificial intelligence, and it is a place to connect the university projects with outside companies and things like that. And I'm writing a project for the Heretic Part 2. But after that, I was working on my own podcast about creativity and artificial intelligence, raising some questions about ethics, about productions, about who gives the credit.
You interviewed yourself in the latest podcast.
What?
You interviewed yourself.
Yes, I record myself just talking about everything with a lot of mispronunciations, a lot of mistakes, so it's gonna be a hit. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Flavia. Okay, Dante, what cooking did you do recently, and what are you gonna do next?
I didn't actually do much cooking this last week.
What?
I was more working on my other projects.
What are they?
So I finished an IRB application for a questionnaire that I'm gonna do with people on the UTP campus about the role that social media and social media influencers have on shaping the cultural norms and values of young adults. I chose young adults because there's a lot more holes you have to jump through to ask kids questions as opposed to 18-year-olds. So I also think it is, with the campus itself, like it's this generation of kids who have grown up fully immersed in this influencer culture. I think it's interesting to see, as someone who's born in '99, I feel I'm on that precipice. Like, right, I grew up without a prevalent weight of like technology, of internet, right? The first smartphone I had was in 8th grade, so I'm curious to see how that, the questions to see that weight. Another project I'm working on is called Recollections, and this is an artistic project trying to create a visual depiction of aphantasia, which is it's essentially this idea or this characteristic. It's not technically a condition, but of lacking a mind's eye. So when I close my eyes and think about something, I think purely in words and associations. So feeling. There's no image. I don't have an image processing that thing, right? I only get that when I dream.
Aphantasia. You just taught Max a word he didn't know.
It's actually it was discovered 20 years ago, so it's fairly new. But yeah, so this is a thing that I've been trying to create a visual depiction of. So the idea is I'm creating a series of canvases or works and different physical mediums associated with like clamping out the sound to attempt to create this kind of immersive experience of how I view the beach.
Thank you. Ryan.
This week I did heat map testing for our website. I gathered about 30 data points from about 20 different people. I sent them a link and I said explore the website, and I put it into Hotjar to see where they went first and to see where most clicks were for certain pages. That, as well as I transferred some stuff from so a little bit about my project is I am publishing Melinda's, Flavia's, and Dante's pieces of work that they're doing for this class. I'm putting it on a website, and I'm creating a unique interaction for each one of them.
A unique interaction?
A unique way of displaying their work, depending
You mean
on.
you can spit on the screen?
You could, yeah. I mean, you can spit on any screen if you want to, but depending on not only just their project, but also their background and their kind of culture and the way how they want for things to be presented. And so next coming week, I'm gonna try to get one-on-ones with y'all to go through y'all's pages.
Okay, Tina Kidd.
Brainstorming what I'm doing. Actually doing literature review, trying to put together what I did for my thesis and try to make
What was your thesis?
is metaphor theories, applying metaphor theories to business data analytics.
Oh, I think Max might write a story about that.
When I become famous.
Applying metaphor theory to business.
It sounded, Raj told me a little bit about it. Sounds really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Before we get to Senex, Patricia, what have you been working on and what are you going to work on next?
Well, I'm going to, as soon as I finish the end of this week, which is almost the end of the semester, I need to and want to launch my podcast interview series through the ArtSci Lab, and I'm opening a solo exhibition next week in Louisville, Kentucky, right before the Derby, called Black Swan Unfolding. I'm interested in Black Swan theory, both how it applies to life and how it applies to economics.
Very good. And Robert, before we get to Senex, what have you been working on?
What have I been working on? Oh, I don't know. It's kind of long. I've been doing lots of stuff. But anyway.
Anything interesting?
Okay, you've been working with Anna Z. Can you tell her what you've been doing with her?
Okay. I can certainly tell you that. So we've been working on this concept of silos, which is and particularly silos at the University of Texas at Dallas. So there are many silos. We're first trying to figure out what kinds of silos there are. We've decided there's formal silos and informal silos, and now we're trying to list them and figure out how to map these. With 30,000 students and then however many hundreds of faculty and how many hundred thousands of staff, there are many silos. Most of us don't know each other. So it's funny you call it a university, but in fact it's a silo-versity.
And how do you plan to bridge the silos?
I don't know. All I'm trying to do is understand them. I think the next step is that some silos are easy to bridge. Some silos are not only hard to bridge, they shouldn't be bridged. The way I do my research is I feel my way. Especially if I'm working on something new, I have no real plan. I just work slowly towards progress.
Okay, you introduced me to an idea I'd never had, which is geological processes might a way to bridge the silos in the university. For instance, plate tectonics. Maybe the schools could drift and collide with each other.
Well, I don't see that happening, but that's. I'm not an art.
No, but then you told me you know how to make it happen. It's called magma and volcanoes. Maybe we need a volcano to erupt on the UTD campus.
Oh, if that happened, that would certainly be that'd be fun.
Can we quote you on that?
Well, it would be. It'd be amazing because there's no chance of it happening.
No, but then they'd have to rebuild it, and then they could build it bridging the business school and the geology school and the art school, and you'd be an affiliate faculty member.
Maybe so.
What you want is just one big building.
Okay, Rama, do you have anything else to spit?
Well, what I've been working on. Well, I could definitely say this. I mean, I'm young enough to say this. I've been working on how to fix my own senioritis, but
Senioritis.
yeah,
High school senioritis.
Yes, I'm a baby to everyone here. I'm still, obviously, like I mentioned, I'm still in high school. To anyone who just joined, but however, I'm looking forward to be working on with Roger here on pretty much how to essentially dissolve cultural timeline. Let me get words out. Dissolves cultural timeline for you, but also for other people around you, because we've definitely seen. Well, I've definitely seen it for myself. I've definitely obviously lived traveling and around the world. Is that if you want to travel around the world or move a country, you tend to have a different perspective. But people always wonder how do we do it, and how we could help someone gain a global perspective without actually being in that environment and have to travel and waste so much effort.
Okay. Max is rubbing his nose. He doesn't understand what you're saying. Could you say it again differently?
Yeah, I understood.
Well, can you explain what he said?
What I think you said was that your research interest is in figuring out ways to kind of mimic, replicate, whatever, understand what the kind of perspective you get from moving between cultures.
Yes.
Okay, good. The famous journalist understood you, and you're only a high school senior. Okay,
Yes.
we're gonna now move to the Senex. Thank you, Tina. And anybody that needs to go to the bathroom can do it without permission. But let's move on to the Senex.
Will Max stay with us? Or?
Yes,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
this
great.
is Senex.
Oh,
he's gonna Uber back to his hotel in downtown Dallas.
okay.
Just ask really quick before we move on.
Yes.
The concept of the black swan theory with economics really interested me.
Yeah.
How would I stay in touch with research or study?
Patricia, can you expand on the black swan?
Sure. The Black Swan events are events that are unforeseen with very extreme impact, but they're understood in hindsight. So examples of Black Swan events are the sinking of the Titanic, the rise of ChatGPT, the
COVID pandemic.
crash of the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, the crash of the Lehman Brothers and the global bankruptcy, the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy and crash of the global market. These would be examples. 9/11 was seen as a black swan event. So they're not simple, they're highly improbable events, which in hindsight one understands. The book Black Swan and also Anti-Fragility, both of those books are part of the Inserto series written by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and he applies a lot of his anti-fragility Black Swan theories to economics.
Okay, so how does it apply today?
How does it apply today? I mean, we have so much uncertainty built into the cake, right? You know, that's being baked into our day-to-day existence right now. I'm expecting a kind of black swan rising of completely unforeseen. I mean, you even have the top pundits and economists saying we have no idea of what will be the outcome of these trade wars. There will be a black swan event that comes out of this because you cannot predict the tremendous complexity of interrelationships that will affect the end result. So I think we're living in a black swan era.
Thank you so much. I think that's really a good insight why we started with this project. And also I want to share my insight too. I got the impression that this is a project of academia, but I came from an industry which also having the same similar situation.
Don't tell us the name of the company.
Oh, right, but I noticed that I'm in the tech field, and a lot of people in the tech field are facing the challenges of challenges of newer technologies. The elderly or the older technicians, they probably are not as fast as the young people in adapting to newer technology. As a result,
And your boss told you to hire the old engineers.
well, the the most senior engineers, they are very experienced, very proficient in the conventional technology. But while the clouds came in, Python, AI came in, you see all these new things need to be adopted. And because of open source, you have to adopt a newer technology. So they are at the disadvantage because they are not as fast as the young people, but they are paid really high. And so those folks.
Oh, they were too expensive, the old people.
But the young folks, for the interns and people in the tech program, they can easily do the work that the senior folks couldn't do for certain type of works. So it's a good news for the older generation, but good news, bad news for the elderly, but good news for the young people. They have more opportunities to learn. So there's pros and cons. But I have a heart for the older people who can learn newer technology. So that's why I'm fully support this.
No, but seriously, you were told to let go of the expensive older engineers in your company.
Well, that's actually they were reevaluating performance and balance these two. So that's a criteria. If you don't adapt to newer technology faster enough, that's.
And it just happened that only old, expensive engineers didn't
It
adapt.
just had to be ageist.
Well, anyway, so I think this program also have another program to join our young people with the senior people, and then we can cross-train. And while the senior people can tell us about the industry, and the young people can help them to refresh their
How's the
Technology.
Silver ingenuity.
Yeah, how's that going?
It started, I'm being taught.
It's good.
So this is our case study about Senex. Senex is the name that coined by the three professors we just mentioned. The Senex is got it from Latin, and the word means senior. Do you professors you want to
We can
recall?
go back. Where's the first slide?
This is one.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
let's a little bit more. So the Senex is so Carl Jung was a very famous psychologist. He had a number of archetypes of people, and one of them was the Senex. And so the Senex is a Jungian archetype. And the Senex and Jungian archetype is the mentor, the wise person, Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker. These themes appear over and over again. And the view of old people varies. So Obi-Wan Kenobi was a very capable, able, old person, right? Where there's other old people that would not have his strength for whatever reason, mental or physical. And so the Senex experience is much more variable than the young person experience, because the young person experience is on a clock, right? The development of a baby, the development of a toddler, the development of a child, and an adolescent, and a young adult. These are all pretty predictable according to the clock. But with the additional 40 years, and maybe we'll get to that, the additional lifespan that we have, what we do with that extra time that we have varies tremendously between old people, right? You can think of old people that are just watching TV and whining, and you can think of other old people like Supreme Court justices that are doing remarkable things in their 70s and 80s. So the range of experiences of old people is something I'm very interested in, maybe because I'm one of them.
Thank you, Dr. Stern, for the background intro. In the definition of the Senex, you all learned from him, and this symbolizes the elder individual. And now we're saying that they represent wisdom, authority, and also Dr. Stern mentioned are we burden of the world? So that's another paradox we're saying we're studying. But this paper, this few professors put together, use a holistic approach of aging, focus on the growth and the depth of individuals over 65. And we mentioned the importance. Now, the Senex archetype, we already covered that. And then we were going to talk about the philosophical roots and the cultural influences in doing comparison across China and India and the Western countries. And we started with the Shakespeare's famous writing. And I think Dr. Stern, you picked it up. And do you want to talk about Shakespeare's?
Well, we were very fortunate because Fred Turner has a depth of knowledge about Shakespeare, and one of his famous passages is the Seven Ages of Man, and so we picked up on that as kind of encapsulating the Western view. Now this was written, the play it comes out of, which I forget right now, was written at the end of the 16th century when the average lifespan was 40 years old, and when you died, you were in misery because you'd already lost your teeth. Your vision was gone. Maybe you had diabetes. Who the hell knows? All of these things that are treatable now were things that would appear in an elderly person. That would be somebody in their 30s, and it would plague them till the end of their lives. Now, the kinds of medical care we can get and take care of these, some of these things are absolutely trivial now. Like, I'm on blood pressure medication. Well, that killed Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He died of a stroke because at that time high blood pressure was completely untreatable. And now you just take a statin and you're as good as new. So we do die at age 80 or 90 or whatever, but the last few years we have right up until the end can be quite productive if for whatever reason we have our wits about us, because the brain is cumulative. You not only learn stuff, things, information, you also have gained wisdom because you put your hand on the hot stove a few too many times, and our connections are multiplied with age. Now, Roger's got one of the most amazing Rolodexes. Those of you that don't know what a Rolodex is, it's basically a way where you keep all your connections. And I'm always amazed at the number of people.
Like Max Chapkin, who just happened to be here tonight by accident. I've been in touch with him for a year and a half.
Well, Roger at age 20 did not have these connections.
Exactly. And I don't have a Rolodex anymore.
Yeah.
But my mind keeps the connections
Youngsters don't
alive.
even know what a Rolodex is, so. We'd have to bring one out of the museum and show it to.
Thank you, Dr. Stern. And also, talking about the shift, now we have a bigger population of the elderly. And you can look at the children per woman, this trend from the 50s to 2015 here.
It's dropped by 50%.
Right, and now we have less and less children, but the elderly, on the other hand, live much longer than before. Longevity, you can see this comparison of US and China.
Which is which?
The blue one is America, the US, and the green one is China.
You mean Americans live longer than Chinese people?
It used to, and now it's very close. After the pandemic, Chinese caught up, and in the
So now Chinese live longer than Americans.
yeah, but if you compare
Well,
more,
there's an emergence.
yeah, emergence trend, they have I think Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, or Singapore, Taiwan, they all have very, very good longevity. So even better than the mainland China. So that's the trends that we're having. So the elderly are living longer, but our social security retirement still the same time, and then the people live longer and still healthy. And what's going to happen?
You run out of money, that's going to be demergence. The social security system's going to collapse.
Any
Well,
go ahead.
one of the challenges is retirement, right? If we keep, so when the United States set age 65 as the retirement age, that was when the social security system was set up in the 1930s. And at that time, the mean lifespan of an American was 59 years. So setting 65 as the retirement age made from an actuarial point of view, made a lot of sense. Now, with the mean age being 80, you have to wonder if it isn't time to revisit this issue. And you can imagine if the Trump administration says, okay, we're going to move Social Security to 70, what the response of, say, the 65 to 70-year-olds would be.
Well, the French have tried to do it, and the government got punished.
Well, but I mean, the point is, okay, there's a number of things that may be unpopular, but still make sense. So if we're living 21 years longer than you're living when they set the age of 65, doesn't make sense to reset the age of expected retirement. Or it's certainly worth discussing without it becoming a political,
I think
I think
banner.
people who are hard locked in, whenever the law's set in place, kind of like let's say if marijuana is legalized in a year in Texas, well, everyone who had marijuana cases, they're still going to be in prison. So if the law states that it's 65, anyone who's 65 right now should still be able to be retired.
The details are always an issue, but the United States is better than Europe because we have no mandatory retirement ages, which Europe and Japan do. So they were set a long time ago, so 62, I think they get France, which is ridiculous. An American, let's say, professor is just reaching his or her stride at age 62. And in fact, I know some of the most productive people I know are on the faculty are in their 70s. So I do think that it deserves to be looked at again. And the entire issue of whether the elderly are burdens or assets, I do think is an emergent theme.
Well, I think that specifically with regards to Social Security, firstly, of course, there's always going to be pushback because of the cultural kind of precedent that's been set as 65 being the retirement age.
Yeah.
Definitely, that is a number or something that could be discussed. But I think specifically in the case of the U.S., the Social Security system needs to be addressed. I think recent predictions are saying by 2036, the reserve will be drained, which is really concerning. But it's like you said, though, the problems are all of the ways to address it, similar to the deficit of the country, are things that will make sure that you don't get reelected or make your party very unpopular. So it's...
Thank you for the input. And also in the article, we also compared different cultures using the poetry and literatures, which are windows into the Senex. So we mentioned about Shakespeare's earlier.
Yeah, we saw it. You know, showed it.
Stages. And also in Chinese, Confucius also has a similar expression. Confucius has a few stages too. And I want to show you real quick here. Confucius says, after 15, I applied myself to learning. At 30, I stood on my own 2 feet. And at 40, I had no more doubts. At 50, I understood the will of heaven. At 60, my ear was attuned. And at 70, I followed all my heart's desire without overlapping the line. So some different stages in different cultures are defined. Usually, the young age we're learning, and in middle age we sustain, and we take our responsibilities. And when we're older, we step into a different role, doing mentoring and teaching. So usually that's the stage of life. And the comparison of the poems and literature, we adopted a few. Many of them are translated by Dr. Turner. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us. We can talk more when he's with us. And these are really reflects the attitude of the elderly when they are older, and what they observed was the inside of the folks who are older. They used to be holding prestigious positions, and then after they are older, how they felt. Different culture have different attitude, but mainly the Chinese are found more positive, I think, and the Western are more objective. And but the theme are very similar, and also reflect from the literature, also generational tensions. Shakespeare's King Lear was the example that used in an article by Dr. Turner to illustrate this tension between generations, because King Lear's children were rebellious, and some of the children were really malicious towards him, and after he got old, how he was treated. So that was used as an example about the generation tension. And now we're noticing in the contemporary world is also similar things that still happening, going on. Any comment on that?
Well, I think I'd love to see somebody rewrite Confucius's ages from the present perspective. At 15, I applied myself to video games, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And there is also a cosmological revolution. We'll quickly pass that. And so the question is, Senex society, now wisdom as destiny. So what's the new rules? Are the
That's Senex optimism, not techno-optimism.
so not everybody agrees.
Well, nobody agrees on anything, so why should this be any different?
Yeah, and the future, what we say? Dr. Molina has a lot to say about.
Okay, if anybody needs to leave, please leave. Your neurons start forgetting things after you've been up since 6 a.m, like all of you have. So I decided to do something a little bit different this time. How do I? I guess the metaphor I decided to use was the stepping stones of life. 5, 6, 7. Go, my God.
So we're stepping stone, right?
Where was my first slide?
It's here.
Go ahead. Okay. So okay, I click here.
Or you can do this in.
Okay. No, okay. So the metaphor is stepping stones. In NASA, I learned that when you launch a rocket and a satellite, there's phase A, phase B, phase C, phase D, and phase E, and phase F is when you turn it off and it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. I want to talk a little bit about neuroscience of aging, psychology, social and interpersonal, and blah, blah, blah. So to get across the river of life, you need to step slowly because the stepping stones are slippery. Some people die at 22, some at 32. So there, and some of the computer science scientists will know about the scaffolding function in programming, temporality and transience. Things get more complicated when you have 3 children, don't they, Max? Progressive complexity, transferability, and risk migration. And so mitigation. So I'm 75 years old, and so now I have to walk 6,000 steps a day. I have to take pills for my blood pressure. I have to do this and do that. I have to mitigate the downside of age. But then I come here and I get so excited by the ideas that are going on in the room. So phase A in NASA is concept studies, phase B is preliminary design, C is final design, D is system assembly, phase E is operations, and F is closeout. So I kind of like the analogy between the NASA phases of building a satellite. Obviously, when you turn off a satellite is when you bury a human being. And obviously, the concept studies is called pregnancy. The preliminary design and technology is called childhood. C is called undergraduate education. D is PhD. E is working in the business world. Now, neuroscience now tells us the advantages that come with aging. I did a bunch of research. Compensatory neural recruitment. When parts of your brain degrade, other parts of your brain take over. Yeah. They compensate for the part of your brain that's not working anymore. Semantic networks. I have more memories than you do. My Rolodex is larger than yours. Deepen semantic networks. Efficient predictive coding. I've lived through things so many times, I don't believe in the black swan. I know what's coming next. And then sustain neuroplasticity. And one of the colleagues that works with us in the lab is at the Center for Vital Longevity Research here on campus. He's been studying Alzheimer's disease. And what's amazing is how the brain, as it gets older, compensates for you losing part of your brain. So it's not just neural recruitment of getting other parts of the brain to do things. So there is now the neuroscience of aging that shows that people who get older have capabilities that younger people don't have. And so I just kind of got interested and motivated by reading up the neuroscience of aging. It also turns out in the psychology literature that Senexes have emotional regulation and positivity effects. They don't get angry as quickly as young people. Have you ever seen people yelling on the street that are over 70 years old? Yeah, it's only the 30-year-olds yelling at each other on the street. Resilience and coping skills. When your spouse dies, you just keep going. If you're 30 years old and your spouse dies, good luck. If you're 60 and your spouse dies, you just keep going. And then this last one, as I was researching it, really life-wide meaning making. And then you get into the neuroscience of motivation. I'm 75 years old, like Robert Stern. We could both retire to the beach and just enjoy life. No, I enjoy working with all you, having ideas, writing books together. I don't know why, but it just pumps. In Greek mythology, it's called erotes, E-R-O-T-E-S, which means intellectual eroticism. So when you get excited about the idea, certain hormones flow through your body, just like in physical eroticism, but it's intellectual erotes, E-R-O-T-E-S. And it's very strange. Having dinner with Max, we just started daydreaming about a book he wants to write, which I'll not tell you about. But we just chilled and, oh yeah, we can do this, we can do that. Why don't we do this? And when I was 22, I never went through that phase. Social and interpersonal gains that come with decades of experience. It's not how many people you know, it's who you know. Quality over quantity in relationships. A lot of 30-year-olds just want to make more friends, want to make more friends, want to make more friends. No. I met this morning at 11 o'clock with 2 retired people in Brussels who worked for the EU, and we had just an amazing conversation. I've known them for 35 years. I know them well. I don't know how ill they are because they're online. So quality over quantity in relationships as the decades go by. So enhanced perspective taking. So when I was 18 years old in Paris, it was 1968, and the students were demonstrating on the streets, including me in Paris, throwing bricks and stones at the police. Did we solve anything by doing that? In 1969, I got to MIT. It was the Vietnam War. We occupied the Student Center. Did that end the war? No. In 1972, I arrived at UC Berkeley. We occupied the railway line to block the train that was carrying munitions. Did that end anything? So now, when I see people demonstrating on campus against Israel or Gaza, anti-Jewish, anti-Muslim, I say demonstrating isn't going to change anything. It's just like taking medicine to make you feel better. It's not going to change the world. So if you want to change the world, demonstrating is not the way to do that. It's just for your self-satisfaction, which is fine. You know, you should feel good about yourself. But if you want to make the world a better place, make sure everybody votes at least once. Are you registered to vote?
Oh, yeah,
Do you vote every year?
every year.
You're not allowed to vote, you're not allowed to vote.
But I
You
voted in
vote?
Brazil and
I
I
voted for the first time this year.
Tina,
Yeah, I lost 4 years
are
ago.
you a US citizen? Do you vote?
Yes.
So voting is the most important way to make the world a better place.
Yep.
And I think in the United States, only 60% of the people voted for president in the last election.
I voted
Sorry.
I've been able to vote for president 2 times. I'm 1 and 1.
What?
Oh, I thought you meant you voted twice.
No.
And there were
Once when I was 18, once when I was 22.
this.
No, and then, this is a little bit awkward. I don't know why it is I enjoy working with all of you so much. Mentorship and generativity. I have ideas I would never have if I hadn't been working with you, Tom Dick, listening to the food as it's cooking. Well, no, I do now. I mean, it's sort of silly, but now when I cook, I'm, oh yeah, interesting. The carrots sound different than the celery.
Yeah.
They do, but I'd never listened to my food cooking before. And I could go on and on and on. So mentorship and generativity, and this is all in the literature of, as people get older and older, things that get better and things that get worse. There's a lot of that too, but we'll not go into the things that get worse. Okay, I'm sort of suspicious about these, but I like adaptive creativity. So I don't believe in innovation anymore. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. I believe in ingenuity. If it works in Brazil, maybe we should try it in Dallas. It's not innovative, but if it worked in Brazil, maybe it might work in, so moving ideas around from place to place, or maybe we should start riding horses again in Texas like they did 200 years ago. That would lower the pollution. Well, no, there's a lot of horse manure. Oh, but that's healthy pollution. Is it? Yes. Storytelling, as Brian knows, I love to use Fred the Heretic to tell stories.
Yeah.
Wisdom, no, I'm not wise. I still do stupid things. So I think that's my last slide. So I'm proposed to Fred Turner and Robert Stern that we write a new version of the Senex article that we published last year. But this time we focus on the neuroscience of the Senex and the social science and psychological sciences of Senexism. Cynicism knows, or the ism that goes with Senex. So
I think that that analysis is really interesting, like the being able to provide concrete evidence that certain things can actually be performed better or more efficiently by an older population.
yeah, and the easy part of it is expertise,
Yeah.
right? You know, when you've done something 2,000 times, you're really good at it.
Right.
But when I was reading the neuroscience and psychology and social science, it's a lot more interesting than that. Just repetition makes
I
you
think,
good.
I don't know, this is like hypothetical, but I'm imagining you look at all of the different, the psychological, the neurological, all of these different comparisons, and then you might be able to isolate specific like jobs or functions that utilize all of those things to the highest degree. Like if you highlight, there's
Sure,
X,
how
Y, and
people over
Z. that are-
60 because they're better at this.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, like what that would result in, right? If
Well, we don't
maybe
know
you
yet
find-
because this is emergent.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's more complicated because the reality is that by the time you're 60 or 70 or 80, you've specialized in a certain direction, whether that's a technical specialty or a personality specialty. Most of us follow our strengths and increase them by exercising them, and we tend to compensate for our weaknesses. So, the Senex does not make a good archetype because all old people are different in ways that young people are not. From one perspective, you could say all the young people are the same, but it's the old people where the real variety is manifested, in my opinion.
Robert, you make a good point. I did a little bit of research as part of this. It seemed to me that older people are more interdisciplinary than younger people. When I worked for NASA, I was an astrophysicist, I designed telescopes, that's all I did. But then it turns out the research tells us the opposite. Older people tend to be super specialized and really good at one thing. And statistically, they've analyzed all the literature to see as people publish in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they tend to focus down on something, not focus out. And so I was a little bit surprised that you were right, Robert.
No, I think you have to start, if you want to become interdisciplinary, you have to start from a base of strength. So a young person, let's say they want to do a PhD in everything in the university, they're not going to be taken seriously because there's no foundation. But if they say get a PhD in physics or a PhD in the arts and build a reputation in that field, then they can move, bridge into a different direction because they've got a thing that other people will respect.
Well, I think that's why your silo bridging project using AI is a good idea.
There's an online comment, Roman.
It's slightly relevant. It's slightly backtracking towards what Roger said. So Roger, you mentioned how you don't believe in innovation, you believe in ingenuity. Can you explain a bit more? Because I'm just trying to get my head around it.
Well, no, we live in a society, and Max has written a lot about it, where just because something is new, it's better. And so the innovation industries, then you patent it because you can own it. Well, maybe, it's like in Paris right now, they're building bicycle paths. Well, that's not innovative. They were there 200 years ago, but now they're putting them back in again, and that's lowering the pollution in Paris. So,
Fun.
no. So ingenuity is making the world better by moving an old idea and using it again, or moving it from Brazil to Dallas. And there are other transfers. You have to read the literature on ingenuity as opposed to innovation. Now, they overlap, so I don't want to exaggerate, because obviously there are things we could do 100 years ago, but we can do them a lot quicker and cheaper with AI. So, the innovation of AI does allow us to do certain things quicker and cheaper and, quicker and cheaper with the big carbon footprint that AI has. And the carbon footprint of AI is just incredible. Don't check with AI what your carbon footprint is when it answers you. Oh, you just destroyed one oak tree. Okay, I think we're out of time and out of neurons. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Max, for staying.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for having me. Roger, feel free to share my email with people. So
I'll share your email and
yeah.
help them find a job.
Please get in touch at any point.
No, and then he and I are gonna be working on a project we're not allowed to tell you about. And we might mention some of you in the project. You wanna mention it?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. It's a book about the origins of the Jet Propulsion Lab and
And the political and cultural context of technology.
Exactly.
So what is the political and cultural context of AI today? Will be the final chapter. When are we gonna meet next?
Thursday.
Okay, very good. I'll be here. Okay,
Thank you, everybody online.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Stern, for sharing.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you, everyone, especially you, Max.
Yeah, nice.
and I will share his email with everybody.
Yeah, please do, and really feel free to